What's going on, everybody? I'm Johnny Brook. Welcome back to another Crafted Workshop video. This week's video, I'm going to show you how I built this coffee table with a bit of a twist. It's got this lift top mechanism which allows you to raise the top, use it as an eating surface or work with your laptop, that kind of thing. But the other thing I wanted to build in was all kinds of storage. We have lots of video games and Blu-rays, and with those video games, lots of different controllers and remotes and all the things that typically clutter up a coffee table, and they all fit within the inside of this coffee table cabinet. So really happy with the way this thing came together. I also built the base out of some copper pipe using a Burns-O-Matic torch, who are the sponsor of this week's video. This is my first time ever working with copper pipe, but I really like the way it came out. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and let's go ahead and get started with the build. I decided to use solid walnut on this build, mostly because I had a few walnut boards hanging around that would work really well for this project. So my first step was breaking those boards down into rough lengths. I like to use my miter saw for this, but I'm always extremely careful when cutting rough lumber on the miter saw because kickback can happen really easily if the boards have a lot of tension and pinch the blade, which is exactly what happened here. Now I used the clamp to hold down the material, and my hands were away from the blade, so I was safe, but it's still a little bit startling when this happens. After the boards were cut to rough length, I could square up one face and one edge of the jointer. Now if you don't have tools to mill rough lumber like this, you can always just buy pre-milled lumber or use something like plywood instead. My local lumber place will mill the boards for me for a pretty reasonable price, but I just prefer doing it myself. Once the boards had two square surfaces, I could run them through the planer to bring the other face parallel to that flattened face. And I actually did this whole milling process over the course of 2 days. First truing up the faces of the boards and letting them rest overnight to allow for any movement to occur, and then flattening them again and bringing the boards down to final thickness. Next, I ripped the boards to final width of the table saw, and I'm working on the boards for the tabletop here, so I was also paying attention to any defects that I wanted to remove. And I had about an inch of extra width to play with, which meant I could rip out some of the larger knots. With the boards ripped to width, I could lay them out and mark locations for Dominos, which I used for alignment. And I know I always say this, but biscuits or dowels would also work in the exact same way here. The Dominos are really just to keep the boards from slipping around during the glue up, which saves a lot of time sanding later on. Also, you might notice I was struggling with getting that first board seated, and that's because I cut the first few domino mortises on the loose setting. And I know a lot of people like doing this as they feel it's easier to align everything, but I find it to be the opposite, even on boards with lots of dominoes like these. As long as you cut the mortises accurately, everything goes together with a light tap of the mallet. And you can see how easily the other 3 boards went together, and those were all cut on the tightest setting. After a few hours in the clamps, I removed the clamps and scraped off any glue squeeze out. Then I taped off a few knot holes on the underside of the top to prep for filling them with epoxy. Now I like to use a pressure roller to make sure my tape is really well adhered, and it just helps to prevent leaks. I used Total Boat high performance epoxy here and mixed in some dark gray pigment and poured the epoxy into the knot holes in a thin stream to try to allow as much air to escape as possible. And off camera I came back with a propane torch and popped any bubbles in the surface of the epoxy. After the epoxy cured overnight, I could remove the excess, and I like to use a combination of a block plane and a card scraper to do this, and I've found that it's just about the fastest way to do this. The block plane removes the bulk extremely quickly, and then the card scraper flushes up the surface really well. And no wasting sandpaper or creating tons of epoxy dust, which is always a plus. Before cutting the top to final size, I went ahead and worked on the cabinet section of the coffee table. The first thing I needed to do was work on the side of the cabinet, which would house the drawer front. I wanted to try something new here and cut the drawer front from the middle of the board, which would create a drawer front with a perfect continuous grain pattern. To do this, I first laid out where the drawer front would be, making sure to label all the parts so I didn't get them mixed up later, and then I cut away the top and bottom sections of the board at the table saw. With those top and bottom strips removed, I could then crosscut the drawer front from the center section of the board at the miter saw. And after that, all that was left to do was glue the parts back together, leaving the gap in the middle for the drawer front. I used Dominos for alignment again here, since alignment was pretty critical, and also made sure to leave a gap on either end of the drawer front for clearance. The glue up went really smoothly. I just made sure to only apply glue to the areas that needed it and not along the entire length of the strips, which was definitely tempting, and I'm glad I caught myself before I did that. Once the glue dried, I cleaned up the board and then ripped all the boards for the sides of the cabinet, including the board with the drawer front, to final width at the table saw. Next, I cut the boards to final length at the miter saw, making sure to keep the drawer front opening centered on that specific board. And I also used a stop block to ensure the boards were all the same length. With the boards at their final size, I could lay out the locations for the joinery for the cabinet. And I again went with Dominos, but once again, dowels or pocket screws would also work great. The cabinet is just constructed with basic butt joints, so they need a little bit of reinforcement, but you could also use mitered corners, finger joints, dovetails, really whatever floats your boat. After cutting the mortises, I could glue up the sides, and this went pretty smoothly, except that one of my clamps was causing one of the sides to bow inwards, which threw off my square when I checked the cabinet for square. And I was really perplexed when, after trying to pull the cabinet into square by clamping on the diagonal, it still wasn't square, but I finally figured it out and just moved the dang clamps. Next, I cut a rabbet into the bottom edges of the cabinet with my router to accept the 1/2-inch plywood bottom panel. And I made this cut in 2 passes, and it is a little bit tricky to balance the router on that second pass, but I still prefer this to trying to wrestle this size of a cabinet on the router table. After cutting in the rabbet, I cut the bottom panel to size based on the size of the rabbeted area, and then rounded the corners to fit using my jigsaw and sander. Once the panel was cut to size, I attached it with glue and brad nails, and unfortunately I forgot that bottom strip was so thin, so my brad nails blew right through that area, but luckily that's not visible in the final piece since the drawer blocks it, and I was also able to fill those areas with some walnut wood filler. The next parts to work on for the cabinet were these riser strips, which brings the height of the lift top mechanism up to be level with the edges of the cabinet. And I wanted this cabinet to be deep enough to hold things like Blu-rays and video games horizontally, so I needed an inside depth of about 7 inches. And the lift top mechanism is 3 3/4 of an inch deep, so I needed to add these strips to bring that height up. I cut the boards to size on the table saw and miter saw, and then added some pocket holes for fastening them to the inside of the cabinet. And also, you might be wondering why I use these random pine boards here. It's because I'm trying to use up some of the random lumber on my lumber rack rather than purchasing new material. I also like using lighter colored woods on the inside of cabinets like this so that it's easier to see what's inside the cabinet. I even considered painting the entire inside of the cabinet white, but I just couldn't bring myself to paint walnut. With the cabinet carcass assembled, I cut the top to final size, first cleaning up one edge on the jointer, and then ripping it to final width at the table saw. And I left the top about 1 inch wider than the cabinet so that the front edge would overhang and allow you to lift the top easily. To make this front edge a little bit more comfortable to grip, I ripped a 45-degree bevel onto that edge. And you can see here how that bevel makes that edge a little bit easier to hold onto when lifting up the top. Next, I trimmed the top to final length using my track saw, and again I left a little bit of overhang on each end, about 1/16 of an inch this time, and that was mostly just to give myself a little bit of wiggle room on aligning the top when installing the lift top hardware. With the top trimmed to final size, I could work on getting the lift top mechanism installed, and since the riser strips were a little bit wider than the hardware, there was a little bit of interference with the hinge mechanism, so I removed that material with a spoke shave. Next, I fully extended the mechanism and then roughly centered it along those riser strips, making sure it didn't hit the side of the cabinet. I could then attach the lift to the risers with some 2.5-inch pocket hole screws. With the lift mechanism attached to the base, I could set the top in place, making sure it was positioned where I wanted it, and then carefully lifted the top and clamped it in place before adding some 1.25-inch pocket hole screws. And for some reason, when I first went to close the lid, this hardware was skewing the top a little bit, but I was able to tweak it and get it level just by kind of torquing on it. Also, I noticed the hardware was hitting the inside of the top in a few spots, which was just adding a little bit of extra resistance to the mechanism, so I just removed those areas with a Forstner bit and a chisel. The last piece of the cabinet to work on was the drawer, which I kept nice and simple and built with 1/2-inch plywood for the sides and 1/4-inch plywood for the bottom. I assembled the drawer with glue and pin nails and then reinforced the corners and bottom with 1.25-inch screws, making sure to countersink the holes first so that the screws would sit flush with the sides. Also, this is by far my favorite countersink bit as it has an adjustable depth stop. I'll have a link to it in the video description below. I know I get a lot of comments asking about this specific countersink bit, so figured I'd mention that. To mount the drawer, I used these bottom-mounted drawer slides, which I actually wish I hadn't done since I really needed every bit of height on this drawer, but they were cheap and installed easily enough. To install the other half of the slides inside the cabinet, I added some 1/8-inch spacers to bring the slides up and attach them with screws. And when I went to install the drawer, I realized that I had made a mistake when the slide hardware was wider than the drawer opening. And I somehow hadn't accounted for the fact that the drawer hardware would add width to the drawer, and I was afraid I was going to have to build another drawer entirely. But after staring at the drawer for a few minutes, I realized I could just turn it 90 degrees, since the length of the drawer miraculously worked almost perfectly as the width once I moved the slide hardware. I could then add some spacers to the inside of the risers to reduce the width of the opening, and I was good to go. Whew, that was a close one. So with the drawer installed, I could then install the drawer front, and I used the playing card trick I've used before to space the drawer front evenly, also making sure to align the grain pattern as best I could, and it really would have been best if I had used a thin curved blade when doing all of the cutting, just to make the grain line up a little bit better, but it still looks pretty dang good. And after getting the drawer front evenly spaced, I clamped it in place and added some 1-inch screws from the inside of the drawer to attach it. So I wrestled with a few different ideas for the pulls on the drawer, but ended up going with a simple hole in the center of the drawer rather than a traditional pull. So since this drawer will face our sofa, I really didn't want to be hitting a drawer pull that protruded from the drawer front with my knees every time I sat down, and I actually think a simple hole really works well here, and I think it looks really good. I did add a little chamfer to the hole off camera just to give it a little bit of a nicer look. Next, I could sand all of the parts up to 180 grit, which always takes a lot longer than I expect, and I also chamfered all the edges of the pieces with my block plane. And after all that sanding came the moment I always look forward to, applying that first coat of finish, and I really love the way Walnut comes to life when finish hits it. I sprayed on 3 coats of a water-based polyurethane, sanding between coats. Also, I've got to say, I just love spraying finishes. It's so unbelievably fast, and I always end up with a much nicer surface than when I try to wipe on or brush on finishes. If you haven't tried an HVLP system or are just intimidated by it, it's really a lot simpler than you might think, and it doesn't take that long to get a hang of it. It took me all of 15 minutes to get this gun set up, and I got 3 coats applied in an afternoon since water-based finishes dry so quickly. So with the finish applied, the top part of the coffee table was finished, so I could get to work on the base. And I decided to try using 3/4 inch copper pipe for the base, which is something I've never worked with before, but it actually went really smoothly. So first, I figured out how all of my fittings and pipe would go together, and then started cutting the pieces to length using a pipe cutter. And these cutters are super cheap, about 15 bucks, and are really easy to use. You just tighten the cutter a little bit after each rotation, and before you know it, the piece is cut. So this base design has 3 long stretchers that connect these rectangular ends, so I had to splice in some T's for those stretchers to connect. And the nice thing about working with these fittings is that you have a little bit of wiggle room in case your measurements are slightly off, since the pipe sits in the fitting about 7/8 of an inch. Also, I used 4 5-foot sections of 3/4 inch copper pipe for this base, and ended up with almost no leftover pieces. So after getting the base dry fit, I could start soldering all of the joints. Now, this was my first time soldering copper pipe, so I am far from an expert, but here's the process I followed. First, I scuffed up the ends of the pipe with some sandpaper, and also scuffed up the inside of the fittings with the brush that came with the soldering kit I bought. Next, I added flux to the end of the pipe as well as the inside of the fitting, and then pressed the pieces together, wiping away any excess flux. Next, using my Bernzomatic TS8000 torch attached to a MAP gas tank, I heated the joint, making sure to focus the heat on the fitting rather than the pipe, since that will expand the fitting and allow more solder into the joint. And once the joint was hot, I could apply the solder, which is pulled towards the heat and drawn into the joint by capillary action. If there are any excess drips of solder, you can wipe them away with a damp rag before they cool down, and that's pretty much it. I just needed to repeat that process a whole bunch of times. So while I solder the rest of the joints, let's talk about the sponsor of this week's video, Bernzomatic. Bernzomatic has been the leader in the blowtorch category since 1876, providing durable, safe, and dependable products. The Bernzomatic TS8000 I used on this project is perfect for use on soldering and brazing jobs like this, and is great for bigger, larger jobs, and projects that require a bit more heat like this one. So I've owned this particular torch for a few years now, and have used it for everything from lighting my scrap wood burn bin, to popping bubbles in epoxy, and even searing steaks after cooking them in my sous vide. So to learn more about the TS8000 and Bernzomatic's other products, check out the link in the video description below, and thanks again to Bernzomatic for sponsoring this week's video. After soldering, I needed to clean up the base, and I started by removing the stickers on the fittings, which I probably should have done prior to soldering. To clean up the excess solder, I first used a file to remove the bulk of it, which went surprisingly fast, and then further refined the surface with 2 different grits of synthetic steel wool. The lower grit really helped to remove the file marks and smooth out the surface, and then the higher grit got rid of the bigger scratches left by the previous grit. And the whole process actually went a lot faster than I expected, and I was left with this super nice matte sheen on the copper. So to seal the copper and keep it from oxidizing, I sprayed on a few coats of an enamel clear coat, but if you wanted that oxidized look, there are all kinds of copper patinas out there that you could try and get some really cool results. So once the clear coat dried, I could get the base attached to the underside of the cabinet, and I actually used some copper pipe hangers for this. The last thing to add to this coffee table was some organization for inside the cabinet and drawer. So first, I 3D printed these dividers to hold my PS4 and Nintendo Switch games, as well as my Blu-rays. And I'll have a link to the Thingiverse project for these dividers in the video description in case you want to print some for yourself. The dividers just attach with screws, which is really nice as I can change them out if I get more games or if game case sizes change in the future. To organize the drawer, I added this Rockler lock-align system, which really helps keep the controllers from sliding all over the place inside the cabinet and is great for organizing all those little pieces that go with the Switch Joy-Cons. And with that added, I could call this coffee table complete. Alright, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I'm pretty happy with the way this whole thing came together. One thing I might change though, if I were to do this again, would be to add a round over to these edges rather than a chamfer, because I think there's just a little bit of a stylistic mismatch between this very rounded copper pipe base, a little bit more rustic, and then this super modern, very angular top and cabinet. Besides that, I think the piece came together great. Obviously, the big feature for us is the storage. Keep the clutter off of this coffee table, keep it looking really nice. And I do actually eat lunch in front of the TV every day. It's just a nice little break in the middle of the day for me, so having this surface to eat off of will be super nice. So I do have plans available for this if you guys are interested in building something like this for yourself. It's a pretty simple project, not a ton of tools required, and obviously I think it's a very functional piece. Also, I'll have links to all the tools and materials I used on this project in the video description below, as I do with all of my video descriptions. And last, I have added that YouTube membership functionality to the channel. Really hoping to beef that up this year. It's a great way to kind of interact with you guys behind the scenes, get questions answered, that kind of thing. So if you guys want to check that out, I'll link to that somewhere on the screen as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and until next time, happy building.